Hey everybody. So last episode I told you guys about the Bone Wars, a bizarre 30-year conflict between two very competitive paleontologists to dig up more bones that eventually led both of them to their graves. In many ways, the Bone Wars were a product of their time, made possible by the slow and unreliable transportation and communication of the 19th century. It's unclear if something like that could have happened in the modern era with the advent of things like the internet. In fact, there's a lot of things born from the internet in just a few decades that pretty much no one could have predicted in the past. Notable among these is the idea of copypasta. In case you've been living under a rock or similar object for the past few years, copypasta is essentially the act of copy and pasting a usually large, usually humorous string of text in a variety of places across the internet for a variety of reasons. It's yet another one of those weird little internet concepts that we really just do take for granted, simply because it's been around for what is, in internet terms, a pretty long time. But something you might not know, nor expect, is the fact that in order for copypasta as we know it to truly be conceptualized and popularized in the World Wide Web, some pretty major technologies and prototypes of modern internet phenomena had to first blaze the trail. In this KRB mini episode, let's take a look at Copypasta Lore. Computers have been around for a long time. Probably a bit longer than many people realize. But a lot of the things we take for granted in our computer systems are relative newcomers to the computing scene. Some of the very first true computers, besides those used for mathematics and science, were used as word processors in business machines, with computer scientists attempting to automate many of the functions that were, at that point, still done entirely by hand. Bookkeeping, copying documents, sending mail, and so on were all considered at the time to be something pretty revolutionary for computer systems, as weird as it may seem now. Around the 60s and 70s, the go-to for a computer's public interface was a text-based system, where users punched in their commands and the computers did the work. What we consider computer graphics today didn't really exist at this point, and user-friendliness wasn't even on the table. But it's important to understand that in this era, computers were almost entirely relegated to use by scientific professionals, researchers, and colleges. Making something the average consumer would use wasn't really the goal, and even basic functions like editing text or copy and pasting were done in a strangely arcane fashion, usually involving a mode system in which a user would have to change a computer's mode in order to perform different operations with the same commands. But in the early 1970s, a man named Larry Tesler set out to change this. To put it bluntly, Larry Tesler hated modes. They were the standard at the time, but Tesler saw a future in which personal computers could be found in the homes of anyone imaginable, and he believed that modes, along with text-based interfaces as a whole, were just too impractical for this to become a reality. And so, in 1973, Tesler joined a team at Xerox's Palo Alto Research Center to contribute work on the Xerox Alto, a personal computer that was, in many ways, an entire decade ahead of its time. The Alto was the first major computer system to feature a graphical user interface, where the user could actually see visual representations of the tasks they were performing, as opposed to just lines of text on a screen. Tesler contributed to the development of the Alto, most notably acting as the lead designer for a word processor called Gypsy. The program was, in many ways, as revolutionary as the Alto itself, being the first text editing program to make use of a GUI and a mouse. But of most interest to us is a certain feature implemented in the program around 1974. Tesler, along with another computer scientist named Timothy Mott, implemented a system through which a user could select text using the cursor, enter a command that stored the text data to a temporary memory location, and then place the text elsewhere with another command. This was the very first copy and paste, and from here, it could only go up. 1975 saw the release of Tesler and Mott's word processor. While GUIs were slow to catch on, what would become the single most essential copypasta tool was now out in the open. From a technical standpoint, we were already there. From a cultural standpoint, not so much. Like I said before, computer users at this time were a very specific and very specialized group of people that used computers almost entirely for work purposes. While copy and pasting existed, it's not like anyone was going to go around using it to slap paragraphs of text in places they didn't belong. No, to get there, we still have a bit of work to do. Now, if you look at it a certain way, Copypasta could very well have started with a single bizarre incident in the spring of 1978. A mainframe known as the DEC System 2020 had just been unveiled by the Digital Equipment Corporation, which apparently was something you could just name your company in 1978. Eager to advertise and demonstrate the new product, a marketeer named Gary Thurk decided to target potential customers by sending out a mass promotion over ARPANET, which, for those who don't know, was essentially an early computer network developed by DARPA. By hand, Thurk and another coworker punched in 400 ARPANET addresses from an address book, and at 12:33 Eastern Daylight Time on May 3rd, sent out an invitation for any message recipients to view a demonstration of the DEC System 2020. Now, this probably doesn't seem like a big deal, but you have to realize that at this point in time, there were estimated to be about 2,600 ARPANET users in the entire world. Thurk had just sent what was essentially the first instance of spam to about 15% of everyone online that year. In modern terms, that would be the equivalent of messaging about 525 million people all at once. So, now we'd established that text could not only be copy and pasted with computer systems, but also duplicated endlessly over computer networks for any number of purposes. But we still got a way to go. Copy and paste, along with GUIs, which were by necessity somewhat linked, became far more mainstream in the early 80s with systems like the Apple Lisa and other personal computers that employed both of them. And just as Tesla predicted, personal computers began to enter the homes of everyday individuals, meaning Thurk's accidental spam email wasn't likely to be a one-off event. As the 90s began to roll around, we saw the rise of BBS and Usenet forums, where computer users, now numbering in the tens of thousands, could gather, communicate, and most importantly, copy and paste. This was when the idea of spam began to be fully realized. The term itself is believed to have originated from a Monty Python bit, where the word spam is repeated incessantly. The practice of spamming became commonplace on these early boards and forums, and it was many users' first experience with the idea of copying, pasting, and sending random text over and over again, usually for the purpose of annoying someone. And alongside this, another more long-form style of spam was beginning to circulate as well. The mid-90s saw a significant uptick in chain emails. They would promise fame and fortune if circulated, or curses if left alone. One of the most famous among these were the infamous advance fee or 419 scams, most notably the Nigerian prince scam, and these emails all shared the common trait of having long, often unintentionally humorous strings of text that one was expected to share. By the time the early 2000s rolled around, all of this was considered commonplace, and it's entirely likely that people were already beginning to adopt the beginnings of copypasta. But it wouldn't be until the mid-2000s that someone actually put a name to it. It's believed by many that the term copypasta itself emerged from the maelstrom of 4chan or another contemporary message board around the dark age of 2006. While its exact internet origins are unclear, its linguistic origins are not. Copy and paste became copy-paste, and copy-paste became copypasta. Surprisingly simple. The terminology was solidified on April 20th of that year when someone posted the definition to the illustrious halls of Urban Dictionary, and the concept began to become more fleshed out. A natural evolution of chain emails, copy-pasting, and some aspects of spam, copypasta in its modern form generally just consisted of a user finding some strange or humorous block of text that they decided to share in various places across the early internet. A number of early copypastas were single strings, usually some type of nonsensical rambling or inside joke that would be shared on message boards and social media sites and put into people's bios and signatures and so on. Early examples included mudkips and has anyone really been far even as decided to use even go want to do look more like, and as time wore on they began to grow more complex. Around 2007, a sort of splinter group was formed from the general idea of copypasta. CREEPYPASTA was a derivation of the main idea in which the content of the copypasta was horror-themed as opposed to comedic. Before a centralized hub was formed for CREEPYPASTA, a number of shorter ones were spread through simple copy and pasting, as internet users decided to share the scary story someone sent them the other day on MySpace. The idea helped to further popularize copypasta as a whole. Around 2009, a subreddit was created to aggregate well-known copypastas, and this allowed thousands of copypastas to be accessed by anyone looking for something they could paste into the replies of a post they didn't like. Around 2010, we see the formation of even longer copypastas, like the legendary Navy SEAL rant, which I'm sure I don't even need to read out, and much, much more. Now, by this point, the idea was pretty much already there. Internet users had a wide variety of copypastas to choose from. They could be unhinged rants from YouTube videos, or monologues taken from films, or in many cases, paragraphs of text designed to make the user feel as revolted and miserable as possible. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. So, as the months dragged into years and eventually into a decade, all we really did was add to the pile. There was a notable resurgence of copypasta-type media in the mid to late 2010s, with a variety of text blocks like Burger King foot lettuce, Hot Chip and Lie, and a personal least favorite of mine, the script for a 2007 animated film starring Jerry Seinfeld. I swear to God, being online in 2017, you physically could not escape this thing. It was just everywhere. But that's besides the point. Nowadays, we accept copypasta as a well-established phenomenon that spans the entire World Wide Web. And love it or hate it, it's most likely here to stay. But it wasn't always this way. And who knows, maybe in 10 more years it'll have turned into something completely different. Hell if I know, I'm just along for the ride. Thanks for watching.